the effects of this powerful sound and consciousness. It's just a couple of concluding points I'd like to touch upon before we bring things to a close for today. So, in our conditioned state, we identify with the content of our consciousness with these thought patterns in the mind. And then, over time, as these thought patterns collate into a mass, it gives rise to a particular sense of identity. And that is your ego or your persona, the mask that you wear. It has arisen from the amass of your collated experiences, yeah? It's pretty simple. So that's the mask, the persona that we wear. But persona literally means a mask. It's not you, but it's the mask. And we're so conditioned we think that we're our mask. Classic 101, Plato's cave analogy. We think we're this mask that we're wearing. So to come out of that cave is to take the mask off. But as long as we're wearing this mask, then it gives rise to a particular sense of self. So this wearing of the mask, this is avidya. This is coming from ignorance. Because we don't know who we actually are, so we're living in a state of ignorance, actually. And from this state of ignorance, asmita, a false sense of self, a false persona arises. And then that persona, that asmita, it has likes and dislikes. Your likes and dislikes are not my likes and dislikes. Each person from their experiences has a unique set of likes, and even twins growing up in the same household, right? Like different colors, like different foods, from their particular experiences. And so we're navigating the world from the sense of identity derived from our collated experiences. And then we try to preserve this persona, because it's also intertwined with our body. And then abhinivesh, fear of death. So these are also what's called the panch klesh, the 5 root causes of suffering. So you can do all kinds of psychotherapy courses and know all this, but these are the 5 root causes of suffering. So how profound Patanjali is giving us such deep knowledge. So in this abhinivesh, we have a will to live. You know, people want to have Botox and they want to have surgery and always to sustain this temporary. We all know we're going to die, theoretically, but we all live. Oh, like I'm going to live forever. Cognitive dissonance. So, this is the cycle of suffering. So this repetition of japa, it cuts it at the root. So all kinds, and this is the distinction here between bhakti yoga that we're sharing here and other practices, other traditions. Because other methodologies, they are predicated on one's own effort. And there's nothing wrong with that, we need our own effort. But is your own effort enough? What do you think? Is your own effort enough? Why? If you're stuck down a well, can you get out by yourself? You need a rope, right?
Everyone in the world thinks they can get up.
Everyone thinks they can build their own.
The world doesn't look like they're doing that well for most people.
This world is in this. So despite our technological advancement, despite our materialistic endeavours, the world is descending more into a state of chaos. How is that? So we cannot think our way out because takahabrishana, our material intelligence has its own limitations. That's a whole other class in itself, but most people have an inner sentiment, through my own effort, I can become enlightened. And if I have a more materialistic leaning, I can create my heaven here on earth. Become a millionaire, get my townhouse, my beach house, and even if I have a view I only have one life, we try to create our relative heaven within our one little life. The materialistic paradigm is life is a random occurrence of atoms. Somehow consciousness arose, you have one short duration of life, and therefore you must enjoy as much as you can in this little duration. And those who are enjoying the most, they are winning. That's short-sightedness, because they have no knowledge of soul, who they really are, only ideas. So, as long as we're stuck in these turbulence of mind, we have these 5 root causes of suffering, and we're afflicted by them, some more or less than others. And we're stuck in this cycle of suffering. And a recognition of this, then people try to get out. And this is the foundation of many spiritual paths, actually, trying to remedy these 5 root causes of suffering. So the repetition of japa cuts these at its root. Now once there was one yogi, a yogi, very powerful meditator, and he, with his discernment, he saw that yes, there is an inherent dissatisfaction in material consciousness, how the conditioned soul is living. So I want to get out of that, out of this punch case, 5 root causes of suffering. So I'm going to go and meditate. And with my own power of concentration and meditation, I'm going to free my consciousness from identifying with my vrittis, with my samskaras, these oscillations. Like when you drop a stone in a lake, it causes ripples. So by my own effort, I'm going to succeed in this. So he went and sat in a river, because when you have the power of meditation, you start to get mystic powers. This may sound a little far out, but actually in the 3rd pada, in the 3rd chapter of the Yoga Sutras, he gives a whole list of mystic powers that come when you can focus and concentrate your mind. Because in this part of your finger, there's more atomic power than the bomb that was dropped in Hiroshima. True from the point of view of physics. And your mind is controlling that, your whole body. So how powerful is your mind? All the atomic bomb, everything, all stealth fighter, all was conceived in mind first. So mind is extremely powerful. So when you can start to concentrate the power of the mind, mystic things happen. So Patanjali's giving that as a warning. When these abilities start to come, don't think that is the fruit, the goal of meditation. Because he's giving a guide map, actually. Don't get distracted by these things. It's not the goal. So there's even Christian saints like Saint Teresa of Avila, she could levitate. These things happen. So this yogi, his name was Surabhi Rishi. And he sat in the bottom of the river and he was doing meditation, pranayama, controlling his breath. He didn't need to breathe. And so he was there for a long, long time in dhyana, samadhi, meditation. And then one day he saw 2 fish coming along in the river. And those fish, male and female, and they were like, and then they started to enjoy. So this yogi, he was disgusted with the world. But just seeing those 2 fish, it triggered that samskara, that impression in his mind, that seed suddenly grew. And then seeing those fish, he was like, oh, you know, enjoying, it's okay actually, you know, I actually wouldn't mind enjoying myself with a nice lady. And then he let out his breath, his pranayama, bubbles started to come up.
He'd been saying for a long time before that as well.
He was underwater a long time, and what happens to your skin when you're in the bathtub for an hour? You ever had that?
Wrinkles.
Your skin goes like a date, right? All shriveled out and doesn't look so attractive. So he got out of the river looking like a date, you know, not a very handsome fellow. And he was thinking, because his mind was powerful. He'd been meditating a long time. He knew close by there was a king. And that king was called Mandata. And he had 50 daughters, 50 very beautiful princesses. So he thought, I'll go enjoy with one of those princesses. I'll ask that king to give me one in marriage. So he went to the king, and Maharaj, in Vedic culture, there's a lot of respect and actually a lot of fear towards yogis, because yogis have power, and if you don't get what a yogi wants, they can curse you. How did the Yadu dynasty disappear from the world? From the curse of Durvasha Muni. So the king, okay, I'll give you one of my daughters in marriage. And then all the daughters, they looked at one another, looking at this guy looking like an old shriveled up date. You marry him, you want I don't want him. But he had mystic powers, so he could understand what was going on, and then by his mystic siddhis, his mystic yoga powers, he manifested a very beautiful Brad Pitt, handsome form. And then all the 50 daughters, they were like, oh marry him, oh marry him. And they were all fighting over one another, running towards him, and he married all 50 daughters, all 50 princesses. So then he was enjoying with them for a long time. But this is the thing with material enjoyment. It doesn't satisfy the soul. You can only have sex for so long. You can only drink so much alcohol. You can only eat so much chocolate. What happens if you eat 10 bars of chocolate? Then you become disgusted. You become sick. Yeah? I'm sure none of you have ever done that, or eat a whole cake. You're all controlled yogis, but so we can enjoy it to a certain extent, but then the tamas comes in, right? Because the material things are always mixed, and it descends down. So then he was enjoying it, but then some sattva awoken, and he was thinking, what am I doing? I was just trying to control my body, control my mind, and then here I am again enjoying. What advancement have I made? So then he left those 50 princesses and he went back to meditating. But the point here is this, that the yogi doesn't have the power by himself to free himself of these 5 root causes of suffering. In deep meditation, they can become dormant like seeds. But in this pastime, we saw that just seeing those fish awoke one of those impressions. And then boom, it grew very quickly, right? And like a fire, he wanted to follow it. So sometimes we think, oh yes, I'm free from this. I've grown up. I've matured. I don't have that tendency anymore. But when the conditions are right, that seed grows again, and then, oh, what do you know? Back in the same predicament. So we need a process that can burn the seeds so they cannot germinate again. That's called Klesh Agni. The destruction of the 5 root causes of suffering. So, and when bhakti truly appears, Klesh Agni happens. The destruction of the 5 root causes of suffering. Because, just to conclude, we have this false sense of self, and then it gives rise to like and dislike, and from this attachment and aversion to things, then that creates karma, reward-seeking activity. And the desires and the karma that we create in this life, this sets the mold for our next incarnation. And that can be up or down the species. We can go down into insect, down into a rock even, or we can go up to a devata or a celestial body. So we're transmigrating the samsara dharma, the cycle of samsara chakra, going up and down through the various 8,400,000 different species of life. So the body that you have right now in this life, it is an exact mold of the karma that you created in your previous life. Just like you have a cookie cutter, like gingerbread man, if you know gingerbread man, then you've got the unicorn or the love heart. So we were rolling out the cookie dough of our karma in our previous life, and then one cookie cutter came, and then you had the form of male, female, this, that. And so this perpetuates birth, lifespan, destiny. So this cycle goes round. Cycle of the mind creates karma, karma creates birth. This is the cycle of samsara. Endless cycle of birth and death, endless cycle of birth and death. So the true yoga psychology is how to cut this absorption in the, and understand our true identity, and to live and navigate the world from your true identity as soul, not from your mind. Understand? So, does anyone have any questions, reflections?
Maybe to be another discussion, another point, but just so you remember, I'm interested in the link between these invalid perceptions and the Pramada Vipralipsa Karmapata, because it's different, slightly different.
Yeah, there's so many different segues we can go on. I'm just kind of doing a little basic intro
Yeah,
today.
that's probably another time, but yes.
But that's very profound yoga psychology. You know, one time, because this is, Patanjali is giving a guide map about how you can understand. Because we just actually have this unconscious disposition. I can understand, of course I can. But actually, all classical schools of Vedic philosophy, they first start with what in English is called epistemology. How can you understand a subject? Do you know this from philosophy? Yeah? You don't just, oh yeah, I can understand. No, you have to understand how you can understand. What's an actual proper means to know valid knowledge? Don't just assume with our conditioned consciousness we can know something's true. There's a process. That has to be established first. What is the means to actually have a valid cognition? Without that, you're lost in your mind. And it doesn't matter how much you can talk all day and night, but it has no solid foundations. First you have to start with epistemology. That is called Praman in Sanskrit. And so we have this cycle, and it creates karma. Karma then creates birth. This goes on and on and on. And so the spiritual life is to recognize this and how to get out. And different traditions, they have their own narrative. Not everyone is agreeing on this point of reincarnation, although it used to actually be there in Christianity in the early days, but now it's not. We won't go into that. But there's a shared commonality that there's an inherent dissatisfaction with this world. We can call it the fall, we can call it sin, we can call it illusion, but there's an inherent dissatisfaction. And we want to have a remedy to this dissatisfaction. And that remedy is first understanding who I really am. This is basic philosophy, religion. It's really getting to the nuts and bolts of it. So it's not some sectarian thing, it's a very profound insight. So,
was it clear why the yogi, or yogi's a good example, but we can generalize why it's the ordinary conditioned person isn't able to find true lasting happiness by themselves?
Mhm.
One thing I like, sometimes they've got like different, like you say, the yogis got mystic powers. So obviously there's different means and different ways of like sometimes they meditate here, different means of like meditating. But I'd like to just share my point of view,
Mhm.
which are something part of practicality, which in terms of astrology it connects. Because there is a governance, like there is a ministry. So above there is a ministry, which connect like all the 9 planets. We have effects on us,
Mm.
on our day-to-day lifestyle. So sometimes we've got good days, sometimes bad days, sometimes this and that. There's another purpose which I'd like to share
Mhm.
while we're talking. This finger
Mhm.
connects to the Shani Deva, which is
Mm.
today is the day for Shani Deva,
Yeah,
or the
Saturday.
Minister of Justice,
Uh-huh.
the Universal Minister for Justice.
Yeah.
So over here, this works like a processor or connects to like, okay, it's good karma, and then go, okay, like a computer, you got antivirus effect. So it destroys all the virus, all the unwanted files, and then cleanses house. That's like lifting yourself, well-being. So that's another understanding of mine, which I had regarding when you have that. So when you have that, and there's an observation on, because Shani Deva, the Minister of Justice, has got has 24/7 observation on us, what karmas we do,
Mhm.
and then he either says, okay, this is what you have, cleansing karma, and then elevates you, or if you go down, then you get punished. He elevates because he's been given that body of governance when the Lord has given him the ministry side. He's got the governance. Basically, he elects that his people. The Minister of Justice, the Shani Deva, has got authority over. So just like that's just like ministers. We have got Minister of Justice, Minister of Education. Everyone's got it.
He's got the portfolio.
A portfolio, yes. So I just wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you.
So there's another reason behind.
Yeah.
So because this finger connects to the Minister of Justice or the supremacy, because he's also the he's also a bhakta of Bhagavan, Vishnu, Krishna, or whatever you say, So whenever we are reciting, we connecting to that. He's giving that tears and that cleansing on us whenever we connecting. So how we, as like we chanting, we are getting cleansed.
Yes. Om Pram Prim Prum Sa Shani Sha Namaha. Mantra to Shani Hai.
I have one question.
Uh-huh.
What is the difference between the soul and consciousness and awareness?
Yes, very good question. So, in the Padma Purana, Uttarakhanda, chapter 226, there's one verse, Admana Devo Natriyakstavo, quite a long verse, and gives very profound insights of the soul. So the soul eternally has 3 qualities. So that is kartrutva, agency, the ability to instigate activity, and then bhogtritva, the ability to experience, and then gyantrutva, the ability to know, awareness. So we've all probably heard of these terms, Satchit Ananda. So certain traditions, they may focus on only one aspect. Their parosion, their goal may only be chit, the consciousness aspect, such as certain Buddhist philosophies. They only focus on the chit aspect. And then yogis, Satchit on the existence. So Paramatma, localized in the heart. But Satchit Ananda, that is the purna, the complete realization. So for those traditions that only focus on the awareness, the supreme goal is consciousness, and particularly many Neo-Advaitins, the supreme goal is just consciousness, and they draw the line there, and they don't go further to see that actually consciousness is coming from your soul, because like I said today, people are aware of the content of your consciousness. So then people go a little bit introspective and they say, oh, actually I'm conscious, I'm awareness. And then I'm aware, and they just try, I'm aware, I'm awareness. And then they create an identity, basically from their mind, I am awareness. And in one sense, because they're touching on truth, it's an eternal quality of your Atma, of your soul, it feels complete. But they're not going deeper, and they don't necessarily have a guide to take them to the deeper actual revelation of Atma. So then their theology kind of draws the line. Well, that's maybe the speciality of their tradition, is they only focus on consciousness. And that's all that they, okay, consciousness is the ultimate reality. But in our Gaudiya tradition, we are saying no, the soul eternally has a quality of consciousness. And consciousness can be synonymous with awareness. Because to be aware means to be conscious. To be conscious means you have to be aware, right? But also, the subtle point is the soul has kartrutva, that ability to instigate activity. Because there's that verse in Bhagavad Gita, Prakriti kriyamani gunakamani sabashaha karali dutatma kartaham iti manyate. So many people take this verse that actually, because the translation is, the bewildered soul thinks that he is the doer of the material activities, but actually they're carried out by these three gunas that we talked about tonight, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. But essentially they are carrying out all of your activities. You think you're doing it, but it's just that energy moving through you, and then you see a chocolate bar as you're walking past your shop, so then you run and buy the chocolate and you think, oh no, that was me, I made that decision, I decided to come to New Zealand. But actually, an impression comes into your mind, and depending on which one of those three qualities is prominent in your consciousness, because the Raja Guna is there, you're going to want to act on that impression. And so a conjunction has happened, and you just follow that like a donkey following a carrot. And so that verse of the Bhagavad Gita is saying, actually that was just the Rajagun uniting with that impression, and so Rajagun was actually performing that activity, not your Atma. So then people take that as actually the soul has no agency. Only the gunas are acting. But that's not the deeper meaning, that's the general outer meaning of the verse. It's true that the soul is not the performer of the material activities. But the translation is, the soul thinks he's the doer. Thinking is an action. So that verse is also stating you have agency. You're not the agent of the material activities, but you have Isha Shakti. You have the ability to desire. So these are subtle deliberations, but the soul does have agency. It has the ability to experience, and it has the ability to instigate activity. Because the Sastra also says, get up, wake up. So just think about that. In the morning when your alarm clock goes off, do you get up and do you wake up? Is that what you do?
We wake up.
She's the other way around.
Yeah. Bhagavata Chetasai. Alright, Krishna Arasajuna, did you hear my instructions, one form of consciousness? Because first you have to wake up. You can't get up unless you're awake, right? But Sastra's saying, get up, wake up. So first, that's implying soul has agency. Do sadhana, then jiva jago. Then you can wake up. Because you have to do a process that will allow you to wake up. You can't wake up and then do the process. It's a reverse. That process will wake you up from the dream of your mind. because we're lost in the dreamscape of our minds. That's why Satya is saying, get up, wake up. So, because if the soul didn't have agency, why all these instructions in the Sastra in the first place? Who's it talking to? The material gunas? No, it's talking to your Atma, to your soul.
So that desire,
The Isha Shakti.
the Icha Shakti that the soul has,
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't have power over the actions of material nature that we're usually identified with, then what is that ability to desire? What is it? What is that?
Mm. So, the classical example is there's a fish swimming in a river. And the fish has an eye on each side, right? And so one side is the spiritual domain, the spiritual world, spiritual consciousness, pure consciousness, the true self. And the other side is the material with self-centered consciousness. So because we eternally have free will, we can go. In every moment, we're kind of making the choice. I can go towards pure consciousness, or I can go towards self-centered ego consciousness. And depending on where my Isha, desire, is going, then I'll become under the sway of either the material energy or the spiritual energy. And the Sattva gun, relatively speaking, in the material sphere, that's when we can actualize our free will, relatively speaking. Because when we're not in Sattva gun, basically whatever energy's in the mind space, we just go along with that. And we don't have the capacity to actually actualize our free will. Only when we're in Sattva gun, then we can actually actualize our free will. And when we're on the spiritual platform, the spiritual energy is directing everything. So these are nuanced topics, but the soul eternally has three qualities. This is unique to our Gaudiya Siddhanta. It has agency, can experience, and can instigate activity. And this is the full revelation of Satya Ananda. Very, very profound. Because that verse from the Padma Purana has also been alluded to in Paramatma Sangha by Jiva Goswami. And there's one particular great sadhu called Jayamatri Rishi in the line of Ramanuja Acharya, who wrote a commentary on that. It's been cited by Jiva Goswami. So that gives you a little brief introduction to yoga psychology today. Any other questions or doubts? Doubts are also welcome, because doubts help us go further.
Yeah,
So they're very much welcome in the Vedic paradigm. It can be a lot to get your head around. We actually had a more simple class today on it, because Patanjali is a great psychologist, and just to help you kind of give some context, once I asked my Guru Maharaj, my teacher, about one topic to do with the Yoga Sutras. And then he started to explain to me about the 7 levels of samadhi, the 7 levels of trance, the 7 levels of investigating and actually knowing a topic in truth. And then I was like, did he understand my question or what? What is he going on about that for? But after some time, I could understand. Oh, he could see I couldn't understand with my current level of consciousness the answer to my own question. I didn't have the ability to understand. But what he was given to me was the tools in which I could understand the subject. And not just that subject, any subject. So then I really went deeply into that for some time. So we didn't really go into that today, but these 7 levels of cognition, of trance, when you have that mapped out in your mind, then you'll be absolutely clear how you can understand something in truth. And if you're not on those levels of, the foundation is a cognitive. If you're not on that base level of concentration, you're just in your imagination. It's very humbling and sobering. And so when anyone else is talking, you can quickly kind of gauge, well, are you speaking from these levels of samadhi, or you just Vikalpa speaking from your own imagination? And that's all what they were doing. So that's why philosophers are puffing on their pipe, and one comes up with this idea and that idea, and it goes on. and no conclusions, because you cannot come to any conclusion. You have to go into theoria. You have to go into divine rapture, where you transcend the limitations of your mind-body complex, and then true revelation can happen. That's the pramam, that's the epistemology. Otherwise, all day long, no conclusion. Yeah. All sighted from my powerful telescope, now I understand we're all one. I mean, that's another thing we could get into, but yeah, so thank you very much for patiently listening. Yes.
One
Thank you
question.
very much.
Yes,
It's
please.
probably quite important to have this question after going through this. For example, in a real world, like after having understanding, we trying to say, okay, this is the transcendental moment, this is the piece of thing which connects to our soul, the Atma. And how can we save the Atma? So this is what I do. But for example, sometimes we have got high frequencies, like ups and downs, because so much thoughts and we get so absorbed into, and then sometimes we too observed and we like feel doing nothing, and we drop everything. And it's like doing nothing. So what are the means and ways we can get the concentration, get the focus back, get to, get something into the part of reality that we can focus back.
Thank you. This reminds me of a very important point.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah.
When the devotees get together, Krishna is saying in Chatusloki Gita, from within the heart the Paramatma stimulates and the devotees relish the pastimes Krishna, the Katha about Krishna, because Paramatma in the heart is stimulating all the people, everyone. So thank you for that. So Patanjali Rishi, he's given a list of different things you can concentrate on to cultivate this ekagrita chitta, one point of concentration. The sun, the moon, crystal, Ishvara, etc., etc. When you're concentrating on an object of this world, it has the shared commonality of cultivating concentration, but because it's a object of this world, it's still comprised of the gunas. So it'll still be leaving some gunic imprint in your chitta, in your mind space. But when you focus on Ishvara, he's nirguna. No gunic imprint. So these three gunas are always in flux. Always. That's why even the great rishis, they fall down and they're marrying 50 daughters or whatever, So there's nothing stable in this world. Nothing. Even from science, the sun will burn out, everything will be reduced to dust. So there's nothing stable to hold on, and that's why even your logic, your foundation is all based on a premise, but it's just an unfinished thought hanging in space, because when you look into the, everything's matter, what's matter? Atoms, what's an atom? It's a quark, what's this, that's it. Actually, what we base our whole scientific philosophy on, matter, we can't even say what it is. So that's the limitation of material logic. And then we're coming up all just unfinished thoughts hanging in space. Relatively, they have some utility. You can make an iPhone or whatever, but it's nothing stable to hold on to. So we need something to hold on to that's transcendent, it's transcendental, that will lift us out of these three fluctuating gunas. That's why Krishna says, what is that verse? I forget. But anyway, Krishna. If you surrender to me, you can cross over all of these obstacles very easily. So, by meditating on Ishvara, because Ishvara, I wasn't going to go into it, I was going to say it tomorrow, but we'll touch upon it here. Ishvara, this is another name for God. Ishvara means supreme controller. We can give another class, because the question may rise, well, I don't believe in God, you know. We can give a class that 100% proves the existence of God, a supreme controller, based on logic and rationale. No belief, no sentiment, 100% scientific logic and rationale. We can give that class. It's there. I can refer you to this, it's on YouTube. So this Ishvara, the supreme controller, it's not good. Anyway, he's beyond karma. He's eternal. So we're in the cycle of karmic reaction. So by every day meditating either on Ishvara or one of the saints who has attained perfection, because he's also gone to Vaikuntha. So that's also an anchor point that is beyond the gunas. And so by every day meditating on the name of God, this is giving you something stable to hold on to, that is also of the same nature as your soul, Sat, eternally existing. And so that'll, and by spending some time every day absorbed in the japa, the repetition of the divine names, that's called a Vishesh Samskara, a special kind of impression that will begin to overpower the fluctuating material impressions, and it will give you a stable, transcendental platform. And then you can be situated in your own soul and start to navigate life and reality from the vantage point of your own soul. And you'll be looking at your mind from the vantage point of your soul, not looking at the world from the vantage point of your mind. Completely different place to navigate life from. We don't know what that's like. All we know is that's the wheel of the mind going round and round, you know? So this absorption in Ishvara, and then also navigating life with the instructions of Ishvara. That is Sastra. Bhagavad Gita, very practical. He's given Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, how to act in the world, whether you're a student, whether you're a householder, whether you're a renunciant. We can, he's given a process depending on our level of advancement, how to dovetail our activities, how we can come back to remembrance. Okay, I have a business, but I'm doing this in the service of God. I'm looking after my family in the service. So we're always bringing things back to that transcendental platform, so we have something to hold on to. And what we're holding on to will lift us up out of this fluctuating material ocean. So thank you very much for your question. So that's one of the importance factors of doing japa, and then coming together, sankirtan, chanting God's names loudly, because that's also a kind of trance, and it looks like, oh, I'm still outward looking at the other people or looking at the screen or whatever, but it's actually taking your consciousness inward, and it's taking it back to the source, because the source of everything is Ishvara, is God. And then when we are connected to that source, we can see everything in its complete connection. As soon as we leave God out, we're lost in illusion. That's a whole other class in itself. But that's the root of our affliction, is because we're turned away from the source. So by turning back towards the source, calling his name, chanting his name together, doing your activities in service of the Lord, doing some puja worship every day to the Lord, we're turning our vision back to the source. And then we have a reference point to navigate life from. So thank you, very important.
Just come to it, that's great.
So,